The following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Monday. We made it, folks. We got to 1 week of the NFL. Well, we still have one game left tonight, but what a jam-packed Sunday we had yesterday. It was one hell of a day. Excited to have football back, and it was certainly an entertaining day for anyone out there who actually sat through it and watched, whether it was Red Zone or your local show or whatever. It doesn't matter. It was a lot of fun yesterday. Unless John, you're a Green Bay Packers fan. Now, it was not a fun Sunday if you were a Packers fan.
No, not at all. Obviously, I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan first, not a Packers fan. So when he's playing for the Denver Broncos, maybe by mid-season I'll have to become a Denver Broncos fan.
Well, is that what he's trying to do?
Yesterday.
Is that what he's trying to do? Like angle his way out? Because, I mean, he certainly, it looks like the only thing he was trying to do yesterday.
You know, Jet Stryer, who co-hosts Pick and Roll NBA podcast with me on that full press coverage, is texting me because he hates Kyrie Irving. He's like, is he pulling a Kyrie Irving here where he's going to just like sabotage the season and then move on to greener pastures? And I don't think that's going to be the case. I look, it's a very complicated situation. He played like crap yesterday. We can all agree on that, right? I mean, like he threw 2 interceptions that he never throws. The one in the red zone was huge because they were down 17-3 at that point early in the third quarter. If he gets them in the end zone, now it's a 17-10 game. You're kind of back in it, right? But he was awful throughout the entire game. That particular pass to Adams was 5 feet behind him. I mean, it wasn't that complicated a play. No, he was god awful yesterday. It appears to me that every team in the NFL got the memo that the regular season started yesterday, except the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. So what he did in the offseason, you can't come back and play like that and not expect the scrutiny. He's going to get scrutinized for what happened yesterday. Deservedly so. He was pathetic. And, you know, the only question I have is going forward when he talked a week before he came to camp or when he came to camp and he had that memorable 30-minute press conference, which I love. That's one of the reasons I like him. He's very transparent. He gives us a lot to talk about, right? As Jimmy Johnson said yesterday on the Fox pregame show, he's the most interesting man in the NFL. I think he is. So, but he got everything out of the way in that press conference, and then he goes and sits down with Aaron Andrews yesterday and does it again. And he does it every week with Pat McAfee. It's like he should have got it out of the way in that press conference. And then at that point say, okay, it's time to play football and try to win a Super Bowl. And then he tells Aaron Andrews yesterday, I have nothing else to prove. Dude, I love you, but you've got one Super Bowl, one appearance. You know, I think you're better than that. And that didn't look good. And then you go out and play absolute dog crap yesterday against the New Orleans Saints.
Well, I'll go back to the Kyrie Irving thing because I think that's a far more appropriate comparison than Michael Jordan's Last Dance, which I always thought was kind of ridiculous. Like the only comparison between the Jordan Last Dance and the Rodgers thing is this might be his last season in Green Bay. Everything else just falls flat because again, you know, Jordan Last Dance, you know, they're going back to win a third NBA championship in a row. This whole and it kind of plays into what you're talking about here, and one of the reasons why I think you know they looked the way they did. And I said this to someone else off air, but I said Aaron Rodgers looks like a guy who hasn't given a bleep all summer. Right, that's what it was. And look, I mean, they've been kind of cocky, they've been arrogant, they've kind of. Look, I'm with you. I like if I'm a fan of a team, I don't want the quarterback to go out and do his like tour de force press conference tour that he's been doing. But like you said, as someone who covers football, you love it. You love those sound bites because it gives us a lot to take in and everything like that. But you know, I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, like you said, you ran your mouth. You had your moment where you got everything off your chest, but it's like it's always these little shots, these little contradictions. Like even yesterday during the press conference, Matt LaFleur came up and said they were embarrassed, you know, that they lost, and they should be. I mean, they should be. They got blown out 38-3. What was Aaron Rodgers' response? Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it embarrassed. You don't have to contradict your coach and every single person in that front office every opportunity you get. And I
Mhm.
feel like he's doing that. And it's getting to a point now where we're going to introduce a little new segment here later, which is basically our chance to give our opinions.
Well, that's just like your opinion.
That's
man.
right. We're going to save it for a little bit later, but I'm going to give you a little taste of what I'm going to say, and it has something to do with this team because what I saw was, to me, very alarming. And I'm not just like, or at least I hope I'm not just kind of piling on here, but deep down, you got to be concerned with what this team is going to be moving forward. I don't see this as just a little blip on the screen, a little hiccup on the way, because that was, like you said, on every level, just a concerning loss in my opinion.
Since Matt LaFleur has been there, they've lost 7 regular season games now. 4 of them have been blowouts. Yesterday's game against the Saints, last year against Tampa in Tampa, and back in 2019 they got blown out by the 49ers and the Chargers. When they lose, they lose. Aaron is a front runner. He's not a grinder. He's not a foxhole guy. If it doesn't look good for him, he kind of bails out. That's one of his weaknesses. They generally recover from that. So we'll see again. They get a fortunate break because they're home next Monday night against the Detroit Lions. They should be okay against the Lions. They're playing in a division that they should win anyways. I mean, because Minnesota lost to Cincinnati yesterday. The Bears look horrible against the Rams, and Detroit may be the worst team in football. So the division is still there for them. So I'm not going to give up on the season after 1 week. And they have had a tendency of recovering from these god awful performances. But again, because it was the first game of the season, and because it's coming after an off season of Aaron Rodgers giving the front office of the Green Bay Packers the middle finger, it just didn't look right. I mean, I'm still watching highlights of that game. That interception to Devontae Adams, Adams was open right from the get go. I mean, normally Rodgers, especially last year, was getting rid of the ball quicker. One criticism that I've had of him is occasionally holds the ball too long looking for the perfect play rather than just getting rid of it. We saw Mac Jones yesterday as a rookie doing that for the Patriots. At times, Rodgers is just looking for the perfect play. Also frustrating to watch is him at the line of scrimmage constantly draining the play clock down to like 2 or 3 seconds. It almost looks like it's confusion, right? Whereas get in a better rhythm. I've called Aaron Rodgers the Stanley Kubrick of quarterbacks. Like Kubrick would shoot the same scene 98 times because he was a perfectionist. At times I get the feeling like Rodgers tries to do that. Sometimes just take something good, like Brady does, right? Take the 6-yard gain and live to play another day. So there's a lot to unpack here from yesterday. It just appeared that he looked like he was ready to retire, right? I mean, and that's a concern because coming back, when he was asked about that, he said he was 50-50. Like, if you're 50-50 on retirement in that sport,
you're already out the door. Yeah.
You're out the door. This is not the post office where you could say, okay, you know what, in 2 years I'm going to retire. I'll be 65. I'll get a full pension, whatever. This is football. You've got to be totally committed. Bill Parcells said it. If you're talking about retirement, you're retired. If he's 50-50 on retirement, the Green Bay Packers are in trouble because you're getting a quarterback who's 50-50. And then what's the trade value going to be in the offseason? Or if they even try to trade him at the trade deadline? I mean, if this goes haywire, and again, I don't think it's going to happen because of the division they play, but if this goes haywire mid-season or at the trade deadline, do they say, maybe we should move on from him right now? And what team is going to trade for him knowing that it may be a half-year rental? I mean, this isn't the NBA. You're not going to spend 2 first-round picks and 2 players for Aaron Rodgers for half a season. I don't think. That's not the way football teams operate. So he's not only hurting his team, he's also hurting himself by doing this.
And it's also a huge risk because, like, look, I know, I try to not overreact to one game, and that's not what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he's hit a wall, he's hit a cliff. I'm concerned, yes, because there are, again, things about not just his play that I think could have a huge impact. And you kind of mentioned a lot of them right there with, just the way he carried himself in the offseason, all this stuff. But like, what team would, honestly, if I'm a team, if I'm Denver, if I'm, so-and-so, why would you want him at this point? I mean, forget about just being a half-year rental. It could be a half-year rental of subpar quarterback play, and that's it. And then he's gone, and not to another team, but gone. And
Right.
that might mean, I mean, he might be already gone in his head at this point. So what team is gonna, lay down any sort of assets for him? And like, so to me, this was not the type of start you wanted from Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I mean, we're not just piling on Rodgers. I mean, there was a lot of bad football being played by the Packers on Sunday, but he was at the top of that list. He was at the top of that list. It was let's just say this is not the start to his defense of an MVP campaign that he wanted. And if I am the Packers, I would certainly be concerned. So we'll come back to this game at some point later today because, like I said,
Can I just add one more?
Oh yeah,
quick
sure.
thing, Ian? There's another quarterback that teams are salivating over, and that's Deshaun Watson, right?
Uh-huh.
Who has his issues, which are obviously much more serious than Aaron Rodgers' issues in terms of life, but maybe not in terms of football. Whenever this gets resolved with Deshaun Watson, you get the feeling that he'll come back and play, and he's all bought into playing football. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to, at the age of, right now he's 25, say in 2 years, say, you know what, I'm all done with football. I'm going to go host Jeopardy, or I'm going to play the ukulele, or I'm going to join a grunge band. I don't think that that's going to be in his narrative. So if I'm a team out there that wants to improve my quarterback position, I'll go in on Deshaun Watson, knowing that you may not get him for this year or part of next year till this gets resolved. But then you're going to get a young quarterback who you think has 10 years left and loves playing the sport and is all bought into playing the sport, rather than getting a soon-to-be 38-year-old who looks like he's half checked out. I mean, that's not a good spot to be in. And the comparison with Kyrie Irving is definitely there. And look, I find Kyrie one of the most interesting guys in the NBA. I think both Aaron and Kyrie think they're a little smarter than they really are.
Mhm.
They have a tendency of being a contrarian. And like you said, I think it's a great point. You coach that as embarrassment. What the quarterback should do, and what we saw Brady do with Belichick for 20 years, is amplify that message.
Yeah.
Don't contradict him. Come out and say, yeah, it was embarrassing. I'm embarrassed the way I played. We played horrible. We have to be better. That's the message you want to hear from the quarterback, not getting into, semantics of what the right word is to describe the situation.
Yeah, and that's really, to me, what really got me, because it's like it's just this obsessive need to have to be the guy who said, you know what I mean, who says what gets taken seriously. Like, I mean, he could have just agreed, moved on, and it would have been like, all right, they're taking this as, all right, we didn't perform well. We need to get back to the drawing board. Well, we are embarrassed. You should be embarrassed. That's not an objective or subjective opinion. Like, you get blown out 38-3 against a team. We both picked the Packers to win this game fairly easily. We thought that was the case. And you go out there and get blown out 38-3. Yeah, you are embarrassed. Don't give me this, oh, well, it wasn't really embarrassed is not the word I do. No, that's the word you should use, because you should be embarrassed. So definitely some red flags for the future for this team. I mean, obviously things can change a week from now. Like you said, they play the Lions, which is, about 75% of Aaron Rodgers' big time career highlights come against this team. But maybe
don't pile on. Don't pile on.
No, that's
a lot of highlights against the Bears and Vikings.
That's for later. That's for later.
Hey, I'm being nice today. I'm going along
well,
with this because actually, one thing about me, and again, I sound like Aaron Rodgers. One thing about me, that's something that he would normally start a sentence with, but is I'll criticize him. I'll criticize him on and off the field. I'm not afraid to do that. I do that with all my favorite guys, LeBron James. I did it with Barry Bonds, whoever the case may be. I'll criticize, but don't pile on. It's only 1 week.
Well, again, we'll see. Like I said, I'll save that for maybe one of our last segments later. But again, we'll touch on this game a little bit more. I mean, there was a lot more to take in from this week. We'll go to the other big time quarterback not named Tom Brady, and that's Patrick Mahomes, who I thought had a pretty good game. I mean, the problem, and this is where I get frustrated, is like, people are going nuts for the 75-yard touchdown pass when it's like there's so many other better plays from him that you could obsess over. Because quite frankly, hucking it up and just throwing it up there, that's an ability to do when you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, who gets left somehow in single coverage in the last third of the football field. I don't know what happened there, but Like, I mean, I wasn't like impressed with that throw. It was behind and low, It was just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to huck it, a little Brett Favre. But hey, you know what? Tyreek Hill's there, runs it in for a 75-yard touchdown. Unfortunately, people are clamoring over that when they should be looking at some of the other plays that he made, which I think were far better indicators of quarterback play as opposed to just, again, hucking it up. But, he had a really good game. Him and, like I said, him and Brady, I thought got off to a pretty good start this season. Aaron Rodgers, not so much, because we talk so much about these top three quarterbacks. I was close. I was feeling all right about that Cleveland pick. I did pick the Browns to win that game. And I thought early on, I was like, okay, this is certainly an opportunity for him. Obviously, the punt fumble that was just bad, and then just obviously the breakdown in coverage, and it's just like, all right, Cleveland, way to really Cleveland yourself there. You could have had that game. I mean, that's a game that if you're Cleveland and you want to take that next step from, okay, we made it to the playoffs, great, awesome, to you need to take us serious as Super Bowl contenders. Well, that was not what you wanted to do. You need to come through and win those games.
Yeah, I think Cleveland has a better roster than Kansas City if you exclude the quarterbacks, which is a big if, right? I mean, obviously, the quarterback is the most vital player on the field every given Sunday. But I think Cleveland did some really good things. They ran the football effectively. You hold Kansas City to 33 points. That's about average. So you have to outscore them to beat them. But yeah, Jamie Gillen's muffed punt where, he decides he's going to run after he drops the ball. I mean, maybe he could have got the punt off, whatever the case may be. Maybe it would have been blocked for a touchdown. You can't give Kansas City a short field. I mean, they're going to drive the ball down the field anyway. But Cleveland had opportunities. It's 12-point lead at the half, and they weren't able to build on that, right? So that's more about their offense. And again, Baker Mayfield, I think, is a second-tier quarterback. So, can they break through with him as their quarterback? Because the rest of their roster, I think, is the best in the NFL. I mean, when you put it all together, their offensive line is superb. You have two great running backs, plenty of receivers, tight ends. Their defense, I think, is going to be outstanding this year. So I think they have a great roster. But can he get you over the top? That's going to be, of course, the big question. But yeah, Mahomes and Brady did what they had to do. They didn't win handily over these teams, but they got the W, and that's the thing. Just kind of win and survive and move on to week 2, where you should get better. Because I thought in a macro aspect that the play this week, it's exciting games and so forth, but it was very choppy and sloppy with a lot of penalties and turnovers. It felt like the fourth preseason game, not the first regular season game. And again, the players are together less in the off season than they've ever been. Camp is much softer than it's ever been. You only play 3 exhibition games. A lot of teams didn't play any of their starters. That's what you get in week 1. It's the quality of play should get better as we go forward.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I agree with you. There was a lot of sloppiness out there, a lot of penalties, I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, you gotta. That's why it's tough to really overreact to week 1 and make so many proclamations. So naturally, that's what we're gonna do to end the show later. So keep that in mind. Why we
have to do that.
Well,
on a
again,
daily basis. Again, it's nice to say the 17 weeks, and but that's not what we do. We have to overreact. That's
of course.
Well, contractual obligation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we're going to do a little bit later to wrap up kind of this recap of the weekend. But Kansas City, I think it's. Here's the thing. Like I said, I thought Mahomes played pretty well. But there was also early on, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. A lot of the same struggles as before. I still don't think he's terribly accurate when you have to throw in tight coverage. And that's going to be a problem because eventually, you're not going to have guys like Tyreek Hill all the time, or at least guys, Tyreek Hill at the level in which he can create so much separation. Because again, I go back to that 75-yard touchdown pass, and everyone is, again, excited for it. They're, Mahomes being Mahomes, this, that, and the other. Well, it's like, okay. So he scrambles out and he hucks the ball down the field. It's wobbly. It's kind of whatever. It's behind Tyreek Hill and low. Tyreek Hill catches it because, well, it's a one-on-one with a defender out, like literally with no one around them. So, you know what? Tyreek Hill is going to win that probably 99 out of 100 times. And it goes for a touchdown. Okay. celebration, big time play, big time highlight. Everyone's going to point to, oh, 75-yard touchdown. Well, what happens when he needs to make that play when you have a defender right on your hip in stride? That's my concern. If well, concern maybe is not the right word. Like embarrassment is not the right word. I look at that, I'm like, okay, there were some issues. There were some problems. Like people will sit there. I know your good friend, your good pal Nick Wright. I know you guys are like, real tight.
We are.
I haven't seen the show today. I'm sure he's up there talking about how no team is going to beat Kansas City. Well, that's not what I saw. I saw a team that looks a lot like the team that we saw in the Super Bowl last year. They just happened to play a Cleveland Browns team that was incapable of finishing the job. Because remember, it was 22-10 at one point, and Cleveland had every opportunity in the world to close that game out, and they just didn't do it. And you know what? Hats off to Kansas City because they capitalized on the mistakes. Same with Mahomes, but this is not a situation you want to be in all the time. Coming back down 10 points all the time, yeah, it makes for a nice soundbite, but I'd be concerned a little bit. Although, based on what we saw in the AFC, I don't know. I honestly don't know what other elite team is in the AFC right now, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, one weekend. I mean, Buffalo did not look good yesterday, and I'm not shocked by that because Josh Allen has a marvelous skill set. He even threw a couple of passes yesterday that looked like John Elway circa 1988. I mean, he's got that type of ability. But I tweeted this out, and I'm not trying to be funny about this, but I wonder how he plays with packed houses because he seems to be a guy that gets overly amped for games, right? Like Brady does that, but he channels it in the right direction. We know when Psycho Tom comes out that he's focused and, he's going to just channel all that energy in the right direction. And even Brady early in some big games will be a little high with his throws. Every quarterback does that, and then he settles down. Josh Allen does 2 to 3 things every game that you just scratch your head and say, what the hell is he thinking? And that can be the difference in winning or losing.
He was stealing a lot of passes yesterday. A lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not a finished product. Look, I'll say this today. I'll say it probably every week this year. Of these uber talented young quarterbacks, I'm taking Mahomes out of the equation. He's kind of already proven himself to be pretty darn great. I would take Justin Herbert over Josh Allen going forward. I think he's going to end up with a better career. 4.2 grade point average, pre-med. He was tutoring other students about what was going on in the classroom. I think he's a better pure passer than Josh Allen, and pretty much equal as an athlete. I mean, he's a big dude that can run too. So that's my long-term prediction that 10 years from now, when we're still doing this show, that we're going to say, you know what? That guy Sapichetti was right. Justin Herbert did have a better career than Josh Allen.
Yeah, one time he was right.
That one time he was right. Absolutely. I was right once.
That'll tie you with me with the one time I was right, so that'll be good.
Even a broken clock strikes twice a day, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, no, so Buffalo looks uneven. Pittsburgh, I mean, Roethlisberger looks to me like he's throwing a wet football or a heavier football. He's done. I mean, he got the job done yesterday. The defense is still sensational. I mean, TJ Watt is just unclockable. And I think the Chargers are going to be a nice story as a long shot. I still think Cleveland's going to be heard from. So yeah, I mean, it's 1 week. I wouldn't put the Bucs and Chiefs in the Super Bowl quite yet. There's a lot can happen over the next 4 months, but they got the job done. And again, that's the important thing.
No, look, I do agree with you that I'm not right off Cleveland. I still am pretty high on Cleveland. I did see some really nice things from them. And look, they were without some of their players too. Odell Beckham Jr. was not active. I am very concerned for Buffalo though, because we've talked about this before with Josh Allen. Like what we saw last year was great. And if you're a Bills fan, if you're a Josh Allen fan, you're hoping to get a repeat of that. What we've seen for the majority of his career, though, is a lot closer to what we saw yesterday than what we saw last season. And that's the alarming thing. Because to your point, maybe he caught lightning in a bottle. First year with Stephon Diggs, things really kind of came together. No Tom Brady in New England. Let's not forget that. So all of a sudden, the Patriots, the big bad Patriots, aren't this, unstoppable force anymore. So things come together for Josh Allen. He has a really great season. They get close to the Super Bowl, and that's that. Well, we've seen a lot of teams do that and then never be heard from again. I'm not saying that's the case with the Bills, but for everyone out there, writing them in for a division title, well, I don't know, man. Look, based on what we saw, how the teams played yesterday, even with the sloppiness, I thought Miami and New England played better than Buffalo. Um, that Miami New England game was peculiar because obviously the Patriots made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes. That game was there for the taking for them, but they fell a little bit short against a division rival. Now, does that mean they're going to have the same performance against a team like Buffalo? Well, we'll see. But that was an opportunity, and you know what? If Buffalo falters anymore, well, that's going to open the door big time for both Miami and New England, in my opinion.
You look at that Patriots game yesterday, and it was kind of a bizarro Patriots game. Like, for 20 years, we would see them maybe lose the time of possession and be outgained by the opposition. But because they took care of the football and they played great situational football and they were good in the red zone, they'd find ways to win. That was the flip side yesterday, right? They outgained Miami. They had the ball for 13 more minutes than the Miami Dolphins, but they weren't efficient in the red zone. 1 for 4 in the red zone, a touchdown, 2 field goals, and then that disastrous fumble by Damian Harris with 3.5 minutes left in the game. So it was kind of a bizarro Patriots game. Defensively, I thought for the most part they were solid, but they didn't come up with the big stops when they had to, and I still think that the back end of their defense is going to be a concern.
Yep.
Just count down the weeks, and hopefully Stephon Gilmore comes back to play, or at the trade deadline, you move on from him and get a future asset if that's going to be the case. But, look, the quarterback was impressive yesterday. Mac Jones was damn good. He's accurate. He gets rid of the football on time. I know you're going to love him. I just can tell already because that's the type of quarterback you like. I don't. I like the uber talented guys that make throws that you go wow. But Mac Davis. There I go again. Mac Jones. Mac Davis is this old actor singer from the 70s. I think he was in North Dallas 40. So forgive me when I continue to refer to Mac Davis. Mac Jones, I think, is be just fine. I mean, he did a lot of nice things yesterday. I just love the way he gets rid of the football quickly, finds the open man, and throws the ball where only he can catch it. So that's a good thing. You lost the game, but I think you found your quarterback. Again, it's 1 week, but that's what we have to do today. I think they've got their quarterback of the future.
Yeah, and I was very impressed, and I've said for so long, I can't. It was hard for me to make any sort of prediction or insight into the Patriots because I really didn't know what Mac Jones was going to be. Everything we heard about practice, does it translate to games? Well, it did in the preseason, but does that translate to the regular season? And so far, you hit it. I mean, he looked. I mean, very rarely did you see him put the ball in harm's way, albeit, save for that first drop back where, there was some confusion where he tried to throw it away, but in reality, he created a fumble because he threw it backwards. That was obviously a shaky start, but that was quickly put in the back burner. And you saw throughout the rest of the game a guy who, I wrote about this a little bit yesterday, like it's getting harder and harder not to draw comparisons to Tom Brady, and not in the way that you think, not in the, my God, this guy's going to have a Tom Brady-like career. No, that's like anyone comparing his potential success to that of Tom Brady's. That's foolish. What I'm comparing is his poise, his ability to move up and down the pocket, which I was kind of really surprised that he looked really comfortable in that situation. And then, as I termed it, his unflappable accountability, which on the flip side, we talked about Aaron Rodgers earlier, where sometimes he has some issues with accountability. Mac didn't even want the damn football from his first touchdown, and I thought that was great. This wasn't a soundbite after the game. This was a caught on camera moment during the game where he treated that football like the Patriots treat AFC Championship trophy. He was handed it, and he was just like, "I don't care. I don't want it." And it's like, okay, why does that matter much for a quarterback? Because it's giving you insight into his mentality and how he handles it. And then you go to the post-game press conference where, one of the first things he said was, I have to be better. We have to, we got to tighten up our game. We can't do this. We can't do that. It's no, oh, well, these guys didn't do well. Or those are the things that Brady did and you expected him to do every single time. And that's what he did. And that's one of the reasons why teammates flocked to him and saw him as a great leader because they knew he was never going to throw them under the bus. And when he got up there in front of cameras, well, guess what? He was never going to give the opposition or the media anything to latch on to, and he was going to take full accountability. Like, let's be honest, Mac Jones was the last issue for the Patriots on Sunday, which I would have never imagined because, like, not like I figured, okay, a rookie quarterback, he's going to make some mistakes. You just have to live with that. There's going to be some growing pains. I didn't see any. Like I said, he stepped in there, and you saw the Patriots give him more and more as the game went on. Very early on, obviously, it was a lot of running, but then they realized like he can make some throws, and like there was a throw that unfortunately got called back on a hold where he rolled out and just whipped the ball down 30 yards on a huge third down, which was obviously a big play. It got called back, but you saw his ability to do that, and then of course. That throw, that wheel route throw to James White, that was, talk about Brady-esque in the sense that watching him play, that's a great play by Mac Jones. It was perfectly placed in a big time situation. And you know what? Those are the things that you want to look at early on and say, wow, okay. Like you said, I think the Patriots might have something here. And this is why they moved on from Cam Newton. I mean, it's clear that, this is why they moved on from Cam Newton because they saw that Mac looked like he was ready. And so far, one game in, they seem to have been proven right.
Generally, unless you're adding Peyton Manning or Tom Brady to the program, you want to draft and develop your quarterback, right? I mean, and I think maybe to a lesser degree, we're going to see Matt Stafford have a monster season with the Rams because he's a veteran quarterback with a lot of talent that he's played with outstanding receivers in Detroit. That's obviously, a misconception. Look at the receivers he played with in Detroit. But he's in a good situation with the Rams. But I think the idea of drafting and developing your own quarterback is really the best way to go. And Mac Jones obviously had the proper training at Alabama, not just football-wise, but how you handle yourself. Since Nick Saban has been at Alabama, if we heard anything bad about the program or the players, like when Urban Meyer was in Florida, Wisconsin, arrests and all sorts of craziness.
Well, look at him in Jacksonville now.
In Jacksonville, he can't get out of his own way. I think Rodgers may last longer in Green Bay than Urban Meyer's last in Jacksonville. But so when you're at Alabama, you're schooled the right way on and off the field. Saban is essentially Belichick. So now he comes to New England and he handles himself a certain way. I would think growing up, no one's asked him this, maybe someone should. I would assume that his favorite quarterback growing up was either Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, right? Because a lot of times, if you're a recruit, a high recruit, you kind of pattern your game or you want to be like your idol. Yeah. Like we've heard Justin's favorite quarterback growing up was Cam Newton. That makes sense. Jack Wilson's favorite quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. That makes sense, right? So, and Mahomes like Rodgers and Favre. That makes sense. I would think that Mac Jones grew up idolizing Tom Brady and Peyton Manning because he's kind of out of that type of mold, right? And then I'm not saying he's going to have the career that those guys have, not at all, but he's that type of guy.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to answer your question earlier, yeah, it is the type of quarterback I like because I like watching the quarterback survey the field and really win each snap, win each play with their head. And I think that's something that even early on, Mac Jones has shown pretty clearly. And look, I thought he played better than Tua. Unfortunately, there were some circumstances that led to them losing that game by a couple points. But hey, it is what it is, and I think there's a lot to build on for Jones, who again, early returns, 1 weekend, so far so good. I real quick, I do I do want to point out that I didn't say it before, but you had mentioned Roethlisberger, and I thought he looked like I thought he looked in the second half. I think in the second half of last season, we saw him kind of fall off a little bit from his start in the first half. He looked like second half Roethlisberger this year. And look, I mean, the guy's 39 years old. I mean, not everyone's going to be Tom Brady. No one's going to be Tom Brady. So I think the Steelers, by virtue of their defense, will be in the mix when it comes to the AFC West or North. But unless this was just a blip on the radar, I think they're in for a pretty long year offensively because that was not a nice, pretty play from the offense there this on Sunday. And again, I mean, they came out with the win, but that's also credit to Buffalo being as sloppy as they were. Jameis Winston, thoughts? Because it was such an odd stat line. At one point, he had 4 touchdowns on like 12 passes for 93 yards passing. And I had to look at that
Yeah.
like 3 times. I mean, how does that happen? Well, I don't know. Well, this is kind of like who Jameis Winston is. He has the most like I don't know, contradictory stats. I don't even know what you want to call it, but either way, he has this really just odd career arc so far, and it seems to be playing that way in New Orleans. But hey, credit where credit's due. I mean, 5 touchdown passes, most on the weekend so far. I mean, assuming Derek Carr doesn't replicate that, or maybe Lamar Jackson tonight. I hope Lamar Jackson doesn't because I'm going against him in fantasy. But um, pretty impressive performance for a guy who, again, is coming in after a year of not starting, after leading the league in passing yards, and he goes out and has a very clean game. 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he went to the right situation in New Orleans with Sean Payton. He got the city year behind Drew Brees. Oftentimes, if you can get a quarterback to just kind of reboot for 1 year, especially a young quarterback like Jameis Winston, he can learn so much more. Look, he had the LASIK surgery. Maybe that helped. Maybe it didn't help. Who knows? I also think he looks to be in better shape than he was in Tampa Bay. He's got a personal trainer. So I think he's taken his job, his craft more seriously now that, Tampa Bay moved on from him. That can be jarring for anybody who's won a national championship, a Heisman, was the first pick in the NFL draft. So he had a good situation also yesterday. They were running the football very efficiently, so that set up a lot of play action. Just a real solid game from Jameis Winston. And look, if he can do that on a weekly basis, I don't expect him to throw 5 touchdowns every week. That would be pretty incredible. The 85 touchdown passes for the season, which would break all the records. But again, he was working in a situation where they were running the football effectively, so that really set up play action pass for him. And look, Sean Payton, whether you like him or not, I'm not a huge fan of his, is one of the best offensive minds in football without question. And now can really open up the playbook because there are things Winston can do that Drew Brees couldn't do, like throw the ball down the field. And I kind of found it refreshing that Drew Brees on Sunday Night Football said, this is what they've been missing all these years, as they were showing highlights of Jameis Winston. So give Drew Brees a lot of credit for being self-deprecating. And I think he's really good on TV. I think he's gonna be a star.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely impressed early on. As long as he doesn't go the Tony Romo route and become a little bit too full of himself and because like it was I was obviously I was watching the Patriots game, so I did have the Chiefs game on another TV. I had the volume on for a little bit, but I quickly turned it off because it just became just a love fest from Tony Romo to towards Mahomes, and it was just like. But again, going back to like, look, there's so many things you can celebrate about him. You don't have to celebrate the most mundane, routine completion as if it was like, him creating, or turning water to wine, because that's essentially how he treats it. But we have a few minutes left. So I said this earlier, and this is the first time we're going to do it. We're going to basically each week, John and I, on Monday, because it's always fun to do this on Monday, we're going to give you what we call your opinion, man. And basically, we're just going to give a pretty strong opinion about what we saw on this weekend and kind of where it's going to go. So you'll know when we start the segment when I, like I did earlier, play this clip.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's like your opinion, man. And I'm going to start, John, because I've been I alluded to this a little bit. You're probably going to get an idea of where I'm going to go with this because I just couldn't not bring it up earlier. What we saw from the Green Bay Packers, get used to it. It's not going to be that bad, but I don't think it's going to be that much better. And for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, I was concerned going into this season that this whole getting the band back together routine, this whole lackadaisical approach to the off season. I didn't think that the switch was going to be able to just be turned on. And one weekend, I think I was right. And I think this is going to lead to a pretty long season for this team. I'm not going to go as far as saying that Minnesota is going to win the division. I've been burned on that a few times before. But I don't I'm not confident in this Packers team to turn this around. I'm really not. I just don't see the talent to overcome it. And again, a lot of that has to do with Rodgers because I think he hasn't taken this offseason seriously enough. And the idea that they're just going to waltz in and just march to the Super Bowl when they haven't been able to get back to a Super Bowl in over a decade was very misguided confidence on their part. And I think that kind of came to a head against the Saints. Is it, like I said, is it going to be that bad every week? Absolutely not. But don't be surprised if at the end of the year you're looking at a team that finishes with more losses than they have wins. And that's my opinion, man. It's just mine.
Bookmark that.
Bookmark it.
Revisit this at
That's
the
right.
end of the season. Absolutely. We're going to bookmark all of these opinions.
Yes.
Well,
if we can get at least one of them right at the end of the year, I think we have done a good job. But so,
yeah.
Go ahead, John.
36 opinions, right? 18
Yeah.
weeks. So
That's right.
times 2 is 36 opinions. You know, even if we get one right each, that's 2 for 36. That's like 7%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So we get 7%
It's
of
like
our
Aaron
opinions
Rodgers'
right. We'll be
record
okay.
when trying to come back against teams with winning records when trailing in the fourth quarter. It's like 2-41. So, anyways,
Thank
go
God
ahead.
we have 4 minutes left of this, of bashing my guy, even though I bashed him. As bad as the NFC North could be if the Packers aren't the team I think they're going to be, the NFC West is that good. I think all 4 of those teams will make the playoffs. Someone's going to win the NFC East, probably Dallas. Someone will win the North, probably Green Bay, and we know Tampa's going to win the South. I don't think those divisions are all that strong, but I think the NFC West is clearly the best division in the NFC. And then all of football, you have elite quarterback play, you have good defenses. The Arizona Cardinals are generally considered the weakest team in the NFC West. They went out and kicked the butt of the Tennessee Titans yesterday. Kyler Murray looked like an MVP candidate, and Chandler Jones. How's this for one game? 5 quarterback sacks and 4 tackles for loss. That's 9 impact plays in one game. That's a great month for a great player, or a great year for an average player. Incredible performance by Chandler Jones. I think that all 4 teams in the NFC West will make the postseason this year.
And there you have it, folks. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to obviously talk more about Raiders and Ravens. That plays tonight on Monday Night Football. We're just excited to have football back. We're excited to basically have our shows planned and written for us without doing anything because, well, football is king. That's what dominates people's viewership. So in the meantime, give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. I am at IGLEN31. And, of course, give John a follow at JohnSapp25. Have a great day, folks.